The stories you've heard are true. This has been the biggest launch of Warhammer 40k ever. The new 10th edition launch box Leviathan was available for pre-order this weekend, and it has been a massive, rip-roaring success, selling extraordinarily well and taking down websites with a scale of demand that we've never seen before. And even more impressively, Games Workshop have met this huge demand, thwarting scalpers and completely demolishing fears that there wouldn't be enough Leviathan boxes for everyone. Days after the pre-order launch of the £150 box, as I record this video, I can see that Games Workshop are still offering the Leviathan box for sale. You can get it still on their website. Needless to say, Games Workshop have made a lot of money. The launch of the first box set of the 10th edition era has been a huge success. But it has also been an unmitigated disaster, leading to the death of wargaming as we know it. Is that actually true? Is that too reactionary? Well, let me explain. This weekend, Warhammer 40k 10th edition arrived. Sort of. Games Workshop are launching the new edition in the most excruciating and unusual way possible. There has been no moment where Games Workshop have snapped their fingers and said, this is the end of 9th edition and now 10th edition is launched and we're all playing that instead now. No. Instead, we've been moving into 10th edition like we're being squeezed through a tunnel of Turkish delight. Data cards and rules are slowly being drip-fed out for maximum marketing hype, and the 10th edition launch box Leviathan was only put up for pre-order this weekend, and it's coming out at the end of the month after everyone has already seen the new rulebook online and most armies are gonna have all of their data cards. Now, Leviathan is a really big deal and part of a very proud tradition. Games Workshop does a launch box for every new edition of Warhammer. Every time, there's always a big bundle box featuring, of course, Space Marines fighting, I don't know, some other guys, some other random army, all bundled with the rules, and you get the models inside that box for cheaper than if you had bought them all separately. Typically, they're perceived as a pretty good deal, and they are always really popular, and they're famous, forming institutional memories in the Warhammer community. Different editions of Warhammer are often referred to by their launch boxes because everyone always remembers their first, a bit like car crashes. Mine was 5th edition's Assault on Blackreach, and those orc models are all still on my pile of shame. I'm getting to them. I'm gonna paint them any day now. Honest. This edition's is Leviathan, and I haven't reviewed it on the channel because Games Workshop aren't answering my emails, and they have also seemingly refused to send me a review copy. But from the outside looking in, the box seems fine. You get a bunch of Space Marines and a bunch of Tyranids. If you're interested in either of those armies and you're looking to buy into the new edition, then it's not the worst buy-in in the world. That would be buying, you know, all of the models individually. Of course, there are better starter boxes for other games in the wargame hobby, but as far as things go, Warhammer 40k launch boxes tend to be pretty good in a vacuum. But nevertheless, before the Leviathan box was even launched, everyone had a huge fear. Terror has gripped the community. If you're not aware, the last few months for Warhammer players have been really rough when it comes to buying miniatures. Warhammer has been selling out, and it's really hard to get right now. As a small example, I've been waiting months to get a squad of Khazarkin for my Imperial Guard army. Yet I just can't. They can't be bought right now. These are models that were supposedly released in February, and it's now June. Where's my Khazarkin models, Games Workshop? And they're not alone. Anything that's being sold as a limited release, meaning that it's a product that's available to buy, but once it's sold out, then it's gone forever. So basically, big bundles like the Kill Team Gallowfall box and the Ashes of Faith box, they've all been selling out in seconds, the moment that they're available to pre-order. Literally seconds. Sometimes they're sold out before they're even available to buy. The supply from Games Workshop has just not been able to keep up with the manufactured demand. So then, it is within this context that the new limited release Leviathan starter box has been released for pre-order, and everyone was really worried that it would sell out in seconds just like all the other boxes. But surprise! Turns out Games Workshop absolutely nailed it. When Leviathan pre-orders opened, people could get into the Games Workshop online web store, they could enter a virtual queue, and they could actually buy the box. The pre-orders were okay. Games Workshop didn't sell out in seconds. 5 hours into Saturday, and people were saying that they could still get the Leviathan box. In fact, Games Workshop are still selling the box at the time of recording this video in the UK. So actually, maybe they might have overproduced a little. So this is awesome, right? Everyone who wants the Leviathan box has gotten one. Well, sort of. This is good for wargamers. In the short term, I'm glad that people were able to buy the box if they wanted to get one. But there's also a massive hidden problem here, one that should be worrying everybody. And it can't be summed up in very few words. Words that were emblazoned in one of the biggest UK wargaming stores 10 minutes after the launch of the Leviathan box. Ahem. Leviathan is no longer being distributed by Games Workshop to us and can only be bought directly from their website. This was 10 minutes after the Leviathan box was first made available to buy in the UK, meaning that in those 10 minutes, this major national store had run out of Leviathan boxes, and the Games Workshop store had not. And for a lot of people, this is incredibly frightening, because it signals that the culture of wargaming, or at least Warhammer, is changing. It used to be that when a new Warhammer model was being released, 50% of the stock would go to third-party independent retail stores and 50% would be kept by Games Workshop for themselves and sold directly in their own stores and website. You can see this in the sales numbers published by Games Workshop. Last year, 55% of all Warhammer products were sold in an independent third-party local-friendly game store. Now here's the thing, Games Workshop actually don't like third-party stores. Much like politicians and hookers, they do a lot of business together, but you won't be surprised if one shows up in the suitcase of the other. The reason for this is really simple. Basically, if you've bought any Warhammer models at all, then you already know that it is really expensive to buy. But the big trick here is that there's no real particularly good reason for that beyond just the fact that Games Workshop like making money. A lot of money. Retail stores, though, don't like this. They don't want to pay tons of money for Warhammer just because. And because they do have a lot more purchasing power because they buy their Warhammer in bulk, it means they can negotiate better prices on Warhammer miniatures than what we as individual consumers could do. As a result, if you buy Warhammer from third-party stores, then you've probably noticed that they're often discounted. This is because third-party stores can buy Warhammer at what's known as a trade price and then sell all the models onto us at a cheaper, discounted price than what Games Workshop sell it for directly. They do this to give us a bit of an incentive to buy from them rather than directly from Games Workshop or their competitors. And if you want to see that in action, then check out my link in the description below. I've got a bunch of affiliate links there where you can see for yourself the 20 to 30% discount prices. Also, I get a little bit of a kickback if you buy from there at no extra cost to you, so help support the channel. But this is all super important because it keeps prices lower overall, and it lowers the barrier to entry to Warhammer for people who can't afford the extremely high price the Games Workshop charge for the recommended retail price of their miniatures. This obviously works out well for us, and I always recommend that wargamers buy from third-party stores. So, affiliate link, plug. Unfortunately, Games Workshop have been squeezing local independent stores a lot recently. At the beginning of this year, I reported on how Games Workshop raised prices for third-party stores in December. And then on top of that, they raised prices for everyone, including third-party stores in January, basically double teaming third-party stores with 2 price rises this year. And we're only in June. Just like that, Games Workshop to love you and leave you. Many third-party stores, by the way, opted to eat these price increases though, because they are in competition with one another, and they actually have to do stuff to win sales and be competitive. Not content with that though, Games Workshop have also been screwing third-party stores when it comes to stock. Buying any box set this year from a third party has been incredibly difficult. Some would say impossible. Like, I'm talking about big national stores who could be selling hundreds and hundreds of boxes, getting just Three boxes of the newest limited release product from Games Workshop to sell. And now it seems like Games Workshop have done the same thing again by keeping the vast majority of Leviathan stock for themselves to sell directly at the more expensive price rather than distributing them out to retail stores at the trade price. When Leviathan first released on Saturday at 10 AM last week, most game stores in the UK were sold out of their stock within the hour. Some of the big national ones in the UK still held on for a little while after. Wayland Games were still selling after a few hours, and Alchemist Workshop are still selling right now, but that's because they've staggered the release. They're selling a few hundred boxes here and there, so that it's not just in a situation where if you were working a retail job on Saturday morning, you just had 0% chance to get the Leviathan box. Instead, they're staggering the release, so that's pretty good of them. But that said, by the time of recording this video, almost every single third-party store is basically sold out of Leviathan boxes. The Games Workshop website though, right now is still selling boxes, although I gotta say it has probably sold out by the time you see this video. Still, that means the Games Workshop are selling Leviathan boxes at least 24 hours after third-party stores have all sold out. And this matches what third-party stores have been warning us about when it comes to the release of Leviathan and the stock that they've been getting from Games Workshop. I have received a lot of reports from stores who were expecting to receive hundreds of Leviathan boxes to sell and are now only getting 10 boxes. Even worse, a lot of these stores who had asked for more boxes had been assured by Games Workshop that they would get what they asked for right up until the very last second, when suddenly they only received a percentage of the stock. As one store has publicly said, quote, "Many stores, including ours, have been hit with a huge cut in allocation despite multiple assurances at all levels that there was plenty of stock to go around." And to me, this is a huge problem and should probably be treated like more of a scandal than it currently is by the community. See, a lot of new people are getting into wargaming through Warhammer and they're buying the new Leviathan box. That's why it's selling so well. There's a ton of new people either getting back into Warhammer for nostalgia or who are jumping in with a fresh edition. If that's you, hello, welcome to the channel. And oh boy, I love your socks. You should subscribe to the channel if you're interested in wargaming, RPGs, and extremely elaborate and outdated pop culture references. And the occasional pun. I do a pun every so often. But okay, the Leviathan box has enticed a ton of new people into playing the game, and this is good. It's good. Honest, I genuinely mean that. It is good. I'm glad people are excited, and I hope they come to love building, painting, and playing with miniatures. Everyone should enjoy playing with their toys. But because all of the third-party stores sold out of Leviathan boxes really quickly, and they had to cancel a lot of pre-orders, this has meant that a majority of those new people have been taught to buy directly from Games Workshop and not third-party stores. In fact, to probably not trust third-party stores at all. Hell, even established wargamers are beginning to be trained to think this way by Games Workshop. Even me, and that's really scary. On this channel, I have talked so much about supporting local stores and buying at discounts and not directly from Games Workshop. But now, whenever something new releases, I have to consider whether it's worth the risk to try and buy it from a local store and potentially not get the product because Games Workshop have decided to slash the stock allocation, or just biting the bullet and buying directly from Games Workshop's website for a much higher price, but guaranteed that I'll actually get what I want. Or, even worse, if you're someone who doesn't know about all these behind the scenes stuff, then you might just think that your local store sucks because they never have anything and you'll just start buying directly from Games Workshop instead. And this has totally twisted the market and is beginning to really damage a lot of third-party stores and threatening them with closure. Now, obviously, on the one hand, Games Workshop have done this because they actually would prefer a world without any third-party retail stores. You know, because Games Workshop sell their products to third-party stores for cheaper than what they would sell to customers directly. If Games Workshop had their way, then they would have everyone buying directly from them at the full price, no discounts. Not really a surprise, and this is not the first time Games Workshop have tried to pull a fast one on third-party stores either. It might shock some people to learn this, but it used to be standard operating procedure for Games Workshop to figure out what third-party stores were selling the most product and then opening an official Warhammer store locally in order to hijack that local community that had been built up by the independent store. But hey, don't look over there, there's a new Space Marine coming out. It's an uncomfortable truth, but Games Workshop have never been afraid of leveraging the fact that they are both a supplier and a retailer when it comes to competing with third parties. It's a very weird situation for many stores because Games Workshop are in competition with those third-party stores, but also their own sole supplier too. It's like being in a drug war with your crack dealer. This might sound like some far-fetched conspiracy, but Games Workshop are actually pretty open about this being the case. It's not a secret. They want this scenario, and they say so in their public investor reports. They want as many people to be buying from their web store as possible, and they've been putting a lot of money into upgrading their website as a result. But even if this is all very good for Games Workshop, it's really, really bad for us, for wargamers. For one, cheaper minis are good for us because, well, you know, checked it straight into my veins. But also, this is a social hobby. Sure, there's lots of playing with yourself in the bedroom. Building miniatures and painting them by yourself can be fun, but ultimately wargaming is all about getting together with other people and playing games with them. This is a contact sport, and for most people, independent stores are often the only place that they can do that in. Not everybody is willing to get rid of their bed and move a 6x4 gaming table into their bedroom and then just sleeping on the kitchen floor like me. They're just too casual for that. It's the casuals. They need local stores to provide the space to play. They're just not willing to do what it takes. As a result, local game stores are often the nexus where hobby communities form. And if Games Workshop get their way, then those stores where those communities form could be killed, leading for there to be nowhere to play games. And that's an existential threat to our hobby. That could kill wargaming. And yet it feels like everybody was really busy this weekend celebrating how easy it was to buy Leviathan boxes directly from the Games Workshop web store, as if this was some victory over scalpers and not just another step in what seems like a war on independent stores. So yeah, that's why I said that while this weekend was indeed a massive success, hopefully everyone who wanted to get a Leviathan box got one, it has also been a bit of a disaster, potentially leading to the death of wargaming as we know it, and that really bums me out. Also, scalpers are a moral panic. They're not really an issue at all. There's like 5 of them and they're buying like 60 boxes. There are bigger fish to fry in this hobby. And if you want to continue hearing about important tabletop news, then subscribe to the channel or check out my Patreon to help support me in doing this full time, getting bonus videos, exclusive streams, and chat with me directly in secret Discord rooms. And if you're interested in hearing more about all the ways the Games Workshop have been trying to squeeze independence, check out this video. And a huge thanks to all my patrons, especially Sonic Bread, Crypto Kev, Novani, and Mistress RB. And I'll catch y'all next time. Bye-bye!